What is a risk?
Every day, in all areas of our daily lives, we face risks.
We try to measure these risks, to find ways to minimize them, and finally accept what we cannot eliminate. But what is meant by risk? A risk is the combination of three factors. First of all, vulnerability. It is a weakness or defect that can be exploited without our knowledge.
In this example, Nadine left key under the mat. These keys are only for her housekeeper. But in reality they are accessible to anyone who would look under the mat.
This constitutes a vulnerability. The threat is our second risk factor.
In the example, the threat takes the form of two men waiting for Nadine to leave, leaving her keys under the mat.
The impact is the third factor that influences risk. The impact is the harm that results from the exploitation of vulnerability by threat.
Generally, as in our example, we tend to assume that the impact is the loss of material or tangible assets such as money, jewels, a computer or a television. But often the impact is intangible.
When Nadine discovers that her house has been robbed, she will be frightened.
Her personal space will have been violated. She will wonder what would happen if someone broke into her house when she and her family are sleeping.
This fear will accompany her for a long time.
This feeling is an intangible impact that results from a vulnerability she has herself created, and this can be much more damaging than the material loss it has suffered. The risk is a vulnerability exploited by a threat and thus producing an impact.
To eliminate the risk, one of these three factors must be eliminated. Eradicating the threat is impossible.
It is an unknown, and anyway the threat is out of our control.
The elimination of the impact is also difficult.
In our example, the only way to eliminate it would be to have an empty house, what is not realistic.
The vulnerability is therefore the only factor on which we have control.
In our example, Nadine could have made a copy of the key to her house and given it to her cleaning lady instead of leaving it under the mat.
This would have eliminated the vulnerability.
Of course, the cleaning lady could lose the keys, and they could end up in the wrong hands.
If she lost them, there would be little chance that a thief would find them.
And even if a thief could not guess by seeing the keys that it was Nadine's house, we exchanged one vulnerability for another, and although the risk is not completely eliminated, it is reduced to an acceptable level.
This is what we call the residual risk.
Residual risk results from a trade-off between what can be gained and what it would cost in time, money and efforts to eliminate vulnerabilities. It should be noted that risk consists of three factors: vulnerability, threat, and impact. We generally only have control over vulnerability, but we cannot eliminate them all. So we are obliged to accept a residual risk that will be the result of the compromise between security and cost in time, money or effort.